Welcome, seekers! You have made it to the Tarot Magicians channel. My name is Ricky, and today I bring you another episode 2 of the Tarot 101 Learning Tarot for beginners and experts also. This could be a refresher. Today we're going to focus on the suit of swords. For episode 1, we went through the basics. We also went and talked about the meaning of every single major arcana, 0 through 21. So if you have not seen that episode, I encourage you to do it. It is episode 1. I'm going to include a link in the description below so that you can access that major arcana Tarot 101 episode 1 video. So let's go ahead and first talk about my Patreon. I want to remind you, seekers, to sign up to my Patreon. As you seekers already know, my dream is to be able to bring the magical message of spirit to others. And the best way that you can help me do that is by signing up to my Patreon. You will unlock many benefits, many exclusive weekly pick a card videos. Every Saturday you'll have a new release or any future behind the scenes footage. And you'll be also entered into the free private reading raffle. Every month we do a raffle for a free private reading with me. You'll be entered into that. Thank you for your love and support, my beautiful future patrons. The link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well for future content such as this. All right, so in this episode 2, we are going to be talking about the suit of swords. And the swords deals with the mind, the intellect. It is associated with the element of air. So I'm going to take you through the suit of swords. We're going to go through the meaning. I'm going to provide you as much information as I possibly can for each card. We are going to be using the Tarot Apocalypsis, just like in episode 1 from Kim Huggins. An artwork from Eric C. Dunn and Kim Huggins is the writer. So we're going to go ahead and go one by one. I am going to include a timestamp in the description below so that if you like to maybe fast forward to any particular swords, you can. For any particular card, you can. If you want to go back, you can. So it'll just help you navigate through the video much easier. All right. So let's go ahead and get started, seekers. Alrighty, seekers. So in front of you, we have the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords. So, there is not a single culture or religion in the world that does not have some form of cosmology or concept of the order of the universe at the foundation of its understanding. This assumption of cosmic order is necessary for further assumptions to be made. And it is upon this foundation that we build everything else. This refers not only to religion or myth. Science, too, must build its cosmology, or more appropriately, paradigm, within which it may refer to the laws it has set and decide upon the questions that it wants to answer. In the tarot, we find this vital cosmic order in the Ace of Swords. Here is the idea that underlies all knowledge, not the seed of an idea, but the necessary preposition or presupposition that allows for the seeds of ideas to be born. The Ace of Swords is therefore associated with order in its many forms. Being the key to its suit, it is also the element of air at its purest, ready to be experienced in its many forms through the rest of the suit. As such, the Ace of Swords represents all mental processes: thought, communication, perception, listening, and observing. Since it is not yet applied to the world, it is also completely objective. Now, with these processes and cosmologies, we are able to form a complete picture of the world around us and within us. The revelation that the Ace of Swords in its simplest form provides is a unified idea. It's a principle or a concept of the world around us. It's a unifying principle. It's cosmic order. It's organization of otherwise ineffable concepts. It's the necessary foundations for knowledge, paradigms, logic, observation, communication. It's thought, it's ideas at the very nascent stages. It's thought before action. It's wisdom and knowledge. It's giving logical form to something. It's providing expression for an idea. It's the beginning of a process of discovery. It's law. It is objective truth. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, the reverse meaning of this card, essentially, it's talking about lack of organization of thoughts and ideas. It's ideas based on poor foundations. It's chaos. It's blockage of communication. It's disorder of the mind. It's a weak mind. It's a lack of ideas. Let's go ahead and move on to the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords. Now, in the Ace of Swords, the necessary presupposition that allowed for the seeds of ideas to be born was formulated. Now, in the two, we see that initial seed idea extended to logical consideration. Here is an idea that can be analyzed, discussed, disagreed over, and taken to a logical, if only theoretical, conclusion. It is not yet acted upon. The Two of Swords is the moment of the first step over the precipice, from the nebulous seed of an idea to a fully formed and logical idea. From impulse to speak to the first word being spoken. It is, therefore, a card of liminality. It's the threshold, the choice in duality. The Two of Swords crossed above the head of the man in the card image represents this duality, taking the form of equally significant or attractive ideas that require consideration and an eventual choice. So the revelation that this card offers us as tarot readers is choice, it's duality, it's liminal state, being at a threshold, it's needing to make a choice. It's uncertainty in the face of many possibilities, logical consideration of options, a pause to consider the potential outcomes of a decision. It's strategy. It's objectivity in approaching a choice. It's willingly making a decision. It's a peaceful reconciliation of opponents. It's agreements, contracts, and accords. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then the meaning of this Two of Swords reversed would be being stuck between a rock and a hard place, being forced to decide, being unable to see clearly the possibilities or the potential outcomes of a decision. It's lack of choice. Let's move on to the next card. The Three of Swords. Grief can be personal, often accompanying big life changes, losses, and transitions. It can also be felt by a person, community, nation, or culture in response to more abstract concepts, or for somebody not personally known to the griever. This kind of grief can wound us just as deeply, as it recognizes that some of our most deeply rooted and valued beliefs have been lost. In the tarot, there are two cards that deal with grief: the Five of Cups and the Three of Swords. It is the Five of Cups that deals with the personal grief. The Three of Swords shows it on a larger scale, as it is found in the suit of swords, the suit of the mind. This is grief not only felt, but truly considered. It's often caused by a perception or realization. Where the fives of the tarot all bear an imbalanced, destructive, and dividing influence, the threes are more lofty, being closer to the source, one aces and the root issue, as it follows the two of swords in which a fine balance is struck within the liminal moment before decision. The three is representative of thought extended to its logical conclusion, leading to existential crisis. The Three of Swords reminds us that the logic of the world, in its stark yet most truthful form, is painful, and points to the realization of the harsh truths of the world. As the three is so close to the source, and as it is in the suit of swords, allied with the cold distance of the mind, it offers an opportunity to react in a very different way to the Five of Cups. It asks us to take our pain, as existential dread and sorrow, and apply it to the bigger picture. It asks us to consider everybody else who feels the pain and suffers as we have. The Three of Swords can be found in those who, through their compassion, walk amongst the sickest, poorest, and most downtrodden people so that they may help them, or in those whose sorrow extends to the environment and spearhead causes to protect the natural world. In this sense, the loss of something so precious that it strikes us with the deepest, most cutting grief can remind us of our core values. What is important to us? What do we value? So the revelation of this Three of Swords is existential crisis. It's pain, it's suffering, it's sorrow. It's the realization of painful and difficult truths. It's revelations that cause suffering. It's the suffering of others and the world. It's feeling anguish at the suffering of others. It's compassion. It's heartache and heartbreak. It's feeling frozen and incapable in the face of inevitability. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then we can interpret that as being stuck in a vicious cycle, unable to move on from grief, lack of compassion, focusing on one's own suffering to the detriment of others or other parts of one's life, being too focused on details, or missing the bigger picture. Let's move on to the next card. The Four of Swords. After generating the initial seed of an idea in the Ace of Swords, extending it to its logical conclusion in the Two, and becoming aware of its consequences and the necessary pain that awareness brings in the Three, the Four of Swords offers an opportunity to rest. This rest is not necessarily a physical one, as it is not the body that has been tested by the journey thus far. Rather, the rest is a mental one, during which the silence of the mind and everyday worries, conclusions, tasks, and planning allows for the growth of new ideas, unhindered and secure. All the fours of the tarot have the power of manifestation, solidity, growth, and slow but certain progress. In the Four of Swords, this power becomes a womb of ideas and thoughts, a time for gathering one's thoughts and the gestation of invention. It is the time taken out of being busy and trying to act that allows us to solve problems and see situations from a new perspective. It is the musings on a concept that give rise to a wealth of new ideas and applications. It is the silent, peaceful time before the flurry of activity required to express ideas. So the revelation of the Four of Swords is reliving mental stress and anxieties. It's relaxation. It's taking a break from worries. It's meditation and contemplation. It's a trance-like state. It's taking time to consider. It's planning ahead to give oneself enough time for relaxation. It's quietening the mind. It's removing external stimuli. It's letting go of focus on many goals or duties to enable a deeper understanding of them. It's a gestation and manifestations of ideas and thoughts. It's solidifying plans and ideas. It's the blank mind leading to inspiration. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what we have here is writer's block. It's difficulty generating new ideas. It's not having time to relax mentally. It's ignoring the need to calm one's mind, being distracted easily. It's mental stress and exhaustion. It's progress of intellectual goals or projects being slowed or blocked. Let's move on to the next card. The Five of Swords. The destructive nature and challenge of the Five of the Tarot manifests in the Suit of Swords as verbal challenges, insults, boasting, ideas pitted against each other, and egos warring for dominance. In the Five of Wands, the challenges allowed for renewed creative force, but in the Five of Swords, there is no creative outlet. Instead, it is a performance of bravado, proclaimed self-importance, and one-upmanship. In some contexts, this can be constructive, providing a space in which to blow off steam or engage in ridiculous yet fun self-aggrandizement. In other contexts, however, it can take a nasty turn, with the deprecation of others and bullying words as a means to make oneself sound better in comparison. It is in the Five of Swords that we also find the means by which people try to gain advantage over others, not always fairly. In many cultures, there are practices and traditions that allow for this sort of behavior in a designated setting. For the Anglo-Saxon and the Norse-speaking peoples, a special place was reserved for the traditions of flighting. From the Old Norse flyta, provocation. It's an exchange of insults, a ritualized form of boasting. It's flighting that could occur in person at a feast in other contexts, or through written communication. A flighting contest was as much about demonstrating one's prowess as a wordsmith as it was about insulting the other person. In some cases, it was also done for the entertainment of others, offering up the contestant as a subject of ridicule. So, the revelation of the Five of Swords is intellectual contest, insult, it's threats, it's verbal attacks, it's meanness done to others as performance or entertainment. It's gaining advantage over an opponent, it's putting somebody at a disadvantage. It's destructive words, it's boasting, it's issuing a challenge, it's egos, fighting, it's bravado, one-upmanship, it's feelings of self-importance. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then the meaning would be the inability to rise to an intellectual challenge. It's being the victim of verbal assault. It's weak ideas that do not stand up to testing. It's refusing to engage to competition. Let's move on to the next card. The Six of Swords. In the Six of Swords, we have an opportunity to reconcile our warring ego with our ideas, ideals and philosophies, and also move to a new phase in our lives. Here we can make the transition from one way of thinking to another or test new waters. This is also the realm of the mind, still growing and evolving, a fluid mind not trapped by old-fashioned ideas or boundaries. As all the sixes of the tarot bring with them a sense of harmony and peace, so the six in the suit of the mind brings peace of mind and mental harmony. The mind is most at peace when it is free to move forward unstifled. This is also a card of transition and movement to undiscovered areas, physically and mentally. The revelation that this Six of Swords offers is transition, it's movement to a new phase, it's rebalancing of the mind and a series of ideas. It's a journey, whether physical or metaphorical. It's passing on ideas to others. It's transitional and liminal forces granting new ideas. It's the freedom of the mind from its boundaries. It's harmony and peace of mind. It's protection and guidance from an unknown source on one's journey. It's new discoveries. Now, if we were to draw this card reversed, then what we have is difficulty moving on or making a transition. It's holding on to the past. It's being held back by old ideas. It's an unwanting change. It's a return to a well-known area of one's life. It's going over old ground. Let's move on to the next card. The Seven of Swords. All of the sevens of the tarot are associated with flux, movement, flow, and fluidity. In the airy, intellectual suit of swords, this flux has been positive and negative connotations. It may inspire the movement and trade of ideas, but it also encourages their theft and the pursuit of duplicity and manipulation. As you can see in the card image, the facial expression of the youth creeping into the night having stolen weaponry displays nervousness, indicating that we know what he has done is wrong. Around the side of the building, a warrior looks down at his empty scabbard and begins to realize that his sword has been stolen. The fire casts his long shadow beyond the building, alerting the thief to the proximity of his potential discovery. The situation is a tense one for both parties, but more so for the thief. He must now navigate his way to safety, attempting to hold on to as many of his stolen goods as possible, while remaining unseen and unheard. The revelation of this card is trickery, it's deception, manipulation, shifting one's intentions. It's saying one thing and meaning another. It's deliberately confusing speech. It's misleading others. It's ideas. Or ideas of theft or work. It's a character assassination. It's political machinations. It's putting others at a disadvantage. It's taking credit where it is not due. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what we have here is wrongly accusing others of blame or wrongdoing. It's misplaced distrust. It's false victimhood. Safeguarding one's ideas or work. It's fear of being manipulated or deceived that's holding one back. Let's move on to the next card. The Eight of Swords. All the eights of the tarot can be seen as double force, with the powers of manifestation, grounding, and earthiness of the fours amplified. Unlike the positive effect this has in some of the suits, in the airy suit of swords, it serves to chain down otherwise fast-moving ideas, limiting freedom, open discussion, and new thoughts. The grounded, manifest nature of the eight brings external forces to bear on internal thoughts, ideas, and the mind. Coupled with the facts that the further into the swords we travel, the more fragmented and unfocused the mind becomes, we find ourselves in a situation where the powers of our mind are bound. We are isolated and unable to move lacking freedom. The revelation of the Eight of Swords is being bound or beholden. It's limited freedom and the ability to act independently. It's ideas and speech blocked. It's controlled or prevented. It's external influences bearing on internal processes. It's usually in a negative way that we can look into this. It's the terminalistic attitude. Somebody controlling another's will. It's isolation from one's power of choice and will. It's feeling helpless. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then it would mean voluntarily being bound to something, being in control of another person in some way. Let's move on to the next card. The Nine of Swords. As the sword suit moves further away from its purest form in the ace, the state of the mind becomes gradually more fractured and displaced. This can be seen in the considerably darker tone of the later swords cards. Here in the Nine, we are almost at the end, so the mind is in a poor state. The Nine of Swords is often an unwelcome card in any reading, depicting a scene of nighttime terrors and subconscious fears. It is in this card that we find all of our nightmares, everything that makes us anxious or neurosis. So it's fears, it's everything that keeps us awake at night. Here we also find mental illnesses and anxiety disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, insomnia, depression, separation, anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, phobias. This is not an exhaustive list, by the way. Disorders that affect perception of the external world and the self also prowl on the shadows of the Nine of Swords, such as body dysphoric disorder and eating disorders. So the revelation that this Nine of Swords offers is anxiety, it's worry, it's mental exhaustion and stress, insomnia, it's nightmares. It's the everyday world causing worry. It's overthinking problems. It's causing them to feel worse or have a more pronounced negative effect. It's negative thinking, a skewed perception that is out of touch with reality. It's phobias and fears controlling one's thoughts. It's something familiar and benign being perceived as threatening. It's mental illness and disorder. It's a stressed mind that is fragmented and fractured and unable to process correctly. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what we have is external forces being a source of worry and stress. It's other people causing anxiety. It's dreams and visions. It's a night owl. It's refusing to acknowledge one's fears or disorders. Let's move on to the next card. The Ten of Swords. The treacherous journey of the sword suit is complete. Here we find the breaking point of the mind. When rational thought and state of mind move so far away from a sense of oneness and focus, they fragment. Their sharpness turning inwards to create anguish, self-doubt, and disorder. What once cut through confusion to reveal truth now betrays itself. What once opened the way towards wisdom now shreds the feet of those who walk its path. In the Ten of Swords, we have reached the lowest point, with destruction and the certainty of endings. Yet, much like the Tower, it presents an opportunity to begin anew. Here, in the darkest moment of breakdown, we are released from the fragmentary, harmful thought patterns that have shackled us. The Ten of Swords, while being a painful experience, is the process by which we destroy the constructs and thought patterns that hold us back, taking apart our most affectionately held beliefs and ideas and questioning everything to its core. In this stripping down of our conceptions, we enter a crisis point, the moment at which our minds snap and are freed. The revelation that the Ten of Swords offers us is crisis point. It's breakdown. It's the snapping of the mind. It's the breaking down of intellectual constructs. It's ideas and beliefs. It's a painful end. It's something taken to its logical conclusion. It's welcoming destruction. It's stripping down conceptions and perceptions. It's questioning everything. It's fragmented mind destroyed. It's also delusions broken down. It's the death of self and ego. Now, if we were to draw this card reversed, then what we have is essentially a clinging on to pain, clinging to those painful ideas or self-doubt. It's self-sabotage. It's the worst point. It's a crisis point dealt with poorly. It's an opportunity for transition blocked. It's overthinking causing problems. Let's move on to the next card. The Princess of Swords. Like her sisters, although the Princess of Swords is the lowest of her courts, she performs a vital role. Residing in the suit of air, the suit of the mind, thoughts, words, communication, the earthly role of the princess serves to bring ideas into manifestation, apply theories to the real world, and contain wisdom and knowledge. The Princess of Swords represents all the ways in which we store knowledge, ideas, and wisdom, and all the ways our ideas and thoughts impact upon the world around us. She asks us to consider how our words shape our world, for it is in her realm that we find thoughts becoming reality. Since she is the youngest of her court, she also brings youth and nascence, representing the beginnings of research, the foundational steps towards an idea being put to use, plans being made to manifest new ideas and revolutionary ideas that change traditionally accepted wisdom. Since she is both earth and air, she can correspond with the grounding and containing of the mind, thought, and intellect, or she can correspond with the breaking down of constructs with the application of the mind. The revelation that this Princess of Swords offers us is essentially the foundation of knowledge, grounding of the intellect, manifestation of ideas, its theory applied, records and writing, history and wisdom that has come to pass, speech, discourse and debate, protecting records in all forms, a container of wisdom. It's the source of an idea. It's the beginning of an intellectual project. It's study and becoming a student. It's a practical approach to learning. It's the power of words to shape the world around us. It's revolutionary ideas. It's an intellectual person keen to engage with new ideas and find their foundation. It's architects, it's authors, it's librarians, and it's record keepers. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what we have here is a lack of ability to apply knowledge to the real world. It's untestable hypotheses. It's reluctance to challenge and test an idea. It's studies and research that have no foundation. It's an idea that lacks staying power. It's writer's block. It's disrespect for study. It's changing history to suit one's own purposes. Let's move on to the next card. The Prince of Swords. This prince resides in the suit of swords, ruled by the lofty and intellectual element of air. Like his brother, he is also associated with air through his rank, and so he is the airy part of air, or the most quintessential air court card. He is air at its most swift, communicative, rushing, and conceptual. Like the other court cards that are quintessential of their element, Princess of Pentacles, Queen of Cups, and King of Wands, this gives him great strength but also great downfalls. The Prince of Swords is characterized by his endless rushing about. He is unable to stay in one place for any given time, physically, emotionally, or intellectually or spiritually. Unlike his younger sister, the Princess of Swords, who puts her mind to practical application, the prince perceives and conceives quickly but fails to apply his logic or intellectual understanding. He believes he does not need study. After all, he is naturally gifted with genius. The Prince of Swords has a natural aptitude for learning the abstract and conceptual and is at his best when debating or discussing a lofty concept. Where the Princess of Swords has knowledge, the Prince of Swords has intellect. Where she listens and receives wisdom, he talks endlessly of what he knows. The saying that the pen is mightier than the sword is especially true for the Prince of Swords. For with a single word he can destroy reputations, manipulate facts and history, twist situations to his ends, inspire others, and put rulers on their thrones. However, it is also true that he is all talk and no trousers. At his worst, he is full of hot air, bragging and besting others intellectually to belittle them. Being found in the suit of swords also gives this prince a warlike demeanor. He often finds causes he considers worthy of championing, though he loses interest in them quickly. But he is also a rebel without a cause, constantly finding something to question, challenge, and break down. He despises authority and often speaks harsh truths that figures in authority do to which others. People often attempt to silence him, but he always breaks free, reminding us that truth and ideas can never be chained. The revelation that this Prince of Swords offers us is a champion of many causes, a champion of truth, speaking unwanted truth. It's revealing the secrets of another. It's a cunning and shrewd mind or approach. It's careful and manipulative words. Inability to commit to one thing. It's the mind at its most intellectual. It's the conceptual and the abstract. It's politics and politicians. It's debate and discussion. It's ideas in an unfocused state. It's moving from one idea to another. It's anti-authoritarian or iconoclastic ideals. It's rebellion. It's refusing to be limited. It's seeking intellectual challenges. Somebody who gets bored easily. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what you have is using truth to hurt. It's troublemaking and causing mischief. It's misdirection and misleading. It's a lack of intellectual focus, a rival or adversary. It's destroying something out of boredom. It's a rebel without a cause. Let's move on to the next card. The Queen of Swords. The pursuit of knowledge has united humankind for millennia. There are many ways that knowledge has been sought, with teaching being the quintessential method of gaining wisdom. The Queen of Swords is a teacher, but her teaching is not that found in the Hierophant, who teaches based on authority, received wisdom and establishment. She is the encouragement to think for oneself, to open one's mind to wisdom and knowledge, the method of perceiving the truth and of applying intellect. Where the Hierophant teaches facts, the Queen of Swords teaches method. She has an intimate understanding of the human mind and the connections that exist in the gaps between facts. She uses this to nurture wisdom in others. However, her insight is often given only to those who request it. She does not let knowledge drip from her tongue like honey, but uses it as a sword to cut directly through lies, ignorance, and deceit. When she speaks, those who listen grow in desire for wisdom and truth. where she is advocate. Her precisely chosen words channel the deepest truths. This Queen of Swords revelation is a teacher. It's an advocate. It's a lawyer. It's a guide, a barrister. It's a debate. It's a philosopher. It's somebody who encourages knowledge in others and nurtures thought and insight. It's the powers of perception. It's the ability to see truth through ignorance and deceit. It's the growth of knowledge. It's sharing insight with others. It's group study. It's emotional detachment. It's objectivity. It's understanding of connections. It's the method of inquiry. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then what you have is bitterness, jealousy, words used to bring out the worst in people. It's lack of emotion causing difficulties. It's somebody unprepared to express themselves. It's difficulty in learning. It's somebody too shy to speak their mind. It's lack of confidence in one's ideas. Let's move on to the next card. The King of Swords. As the leader of the Court of Suit of Air, the King of Swords is the pinnacle of knowledge and the culmination of the quest for wisdom. As the fiery part of air, he is also the most active part of the quest for knowledge, representing the gaining of it as well as its use and application. The King of Swords is a wealth of insight, logic, and wisdom. He is the active mind obtaining new insights and applying it to the world. He is a master tactician, viewing life as a battle or strategy game that must be fought, solved, and outwitted. He reminds us that much of the knowledge we search for is not passively received through inaction, but gained through striving, force, and will. Sometimes we must sacrifice in order to gain wisdom. It often comes with a price. As such, the King of Swords can act as a blockage, demanding payment for knowledge before progress can be made. The truth that the King of Swords gives are harsh and they are necessary. He strives for facts and verifiable truth rather than inner wisdom and understanding. He does not suffer fools gladly. Often the King of Swords stands in judgment over people, as he is impartial, logical, and careful to make decisions. He stands witness to oaths and promises, dealing harshly and quickly with those who break them. The revelation that this King of Swords gives us is essentially a judge, to lawyer, to lawmaker, to lawkeeper, to protecting promises. It's oaths and contracts. It's a strategist and a tactician. It's a great thinker. It's an intellectual leader. It's an expert in an academic field. It's an achiever, an achievement of knowledge, passion, drive, feeding knowledge. It's active communication. It's reaching the culmination of research, a burning desire for knowledge. It's willingness to sacrifice for knowledge. It's ambitious ideas, and it's also excelling intellectually. Now, if you were to draw this card reversed, then we can see that as a bad-tempered person, clouded judgment, incorrect conclusions, oaths broken, contracts not honored, a blockage, the full weight of the law being used negatively, a tyrant. All right, so Seekers, that brings us to the very end of our class today of episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Episode 3 is in the works and it will be released potentially next week. So let me know what you thought in the comments section below of this episode, if you enjoyed it. Also, if you have any particular questions, I want to hear them. Let me know in the comment section what those questions are. Don't forget to give the video a like, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you're not a part of the community, subscribe. But let me know down below if you have any questions. Also, I'm going to include the link to episode 1 if you missed it. I'm going to include that link in the description below for you seekers. Okay? So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Love every single one of you. Bye-bye.